She was interested in trying swinging. What was I supposed to do? I'm Ben Collier, 36, an only child. At the start of this story, I'd been married to Emma, formerly Foster, for 11 years. Emma, with her striking red hair, vibrant green eyes, and radiant smile, had always turned heads. We'd both agreed not to have kids. I had no desire to carry on my family line after enduring years of emotional abuse growing up, where my parents' nickname for me was Stupid Mistake. For Emma, the decision was about her career and a concern that having children would change her figure. One weekend morning, while I was wrapping up my coffee and mentally sorting through my list of weekend chores, Emma joined me at the table, something she didn't often do. She looked at me and said, "Ben, I want us to try sex with another couple. You're an amazing husband, but I think there might be something about it that we could enjoy together." I was just dumbfounded and finished my coffee, put the cup in the sink, and walked out of the kitchen and into the master bedroom. Emma followed and said, "Aren't you going to say anything?" "Yes, I am going to say something. Enjoy the rest of your life. I will pack all of your crap and put it on the porch. Take it to whoever put that crap in your mind. The next time we talk will be across the table with a divorce attorney." "What do you mean?" she screamed. "I don't want a divorce. I am not moving out. I am talking about taking a lover, not cheating on you." "Lady, you made 4 statements there, and you were wrong on at least 3 of them. You must want a divorce. I no longer am enough. You are moving out. My a-hole parents left me this house and most of the furniture. You have no claim to it. Don't forget the prenup your loving parents insisted on. As for talking about taking someone else as a sex partner, we did not talk. You made a statement. Also, as far as I am concerned, even though you told me, probably before you did it, planning sex with someone else is cheating. Our marriage vows, not suggestions," vows said, forsaking all others. I was on a roll now. If we were having problems in the bedroom, why am I just now finding out about them? After 11 years, I realized you were not a screamer, but you never asked me to try something different. Did you? She hung her head and stated, "No, I never said anything." "Then this conversation is over. Now either help me pack or get out of here. You need to find somewhere to stay after this weekend, because come Monday you don't live here anymore. Tonight you will sleep in one of the other bedrooms. One more thing. Was I going to be privileged to know who you were going to cheat with?" "I had not decided," she said. "What?" I screamed. "Is there a whole list? And how many have you already taken to bed?" Emma started crying and tried to say something. I just went up to her, turned her around, and led her out of the bedroom. Then I closed the door. We met in high school. I was not what you would call a jock, nor was I a geek. I was, however, an athlete. I ran cross-country and track. Our team was city champion in cross-country, and I was an all-state track member in the mile and half-a-mile runs and the 1-mile relay. We had a great program and were city champs every year I ran. Emma Foster was a shy girl and transferred into the district her junior year. We met in an unusual way. I was a senior, and coming out of a pre-college counseling meeting when I saw Emma was being cornered by a couple of the resident bullies that almost every school has. I hollered at them to back off, and when they turned to tell me to mind my own business, Emma scooted away. That left me to just laugh at the bullies and say, "Sure, guys, but what are you going to do now that you have no one to bully?" They turned around and found an empty wall staring at them. I just walked away. At lunch that day, Emma, I found out her name from a friend of mine in her homeroom, came up to my table and totally surprised me by screaming, "Mind your own business, a-hole. I don't need anyone's help. Just leave me alone." "Okay," I said quietly. "I am sorry you did not get to experience those 2 jerks' attention. Just ask around about them. I will not interfere again. Are you happy now? If you are, get your face out of my face and let me enjoy my lunch while I deal with people who have some manners." I know, I was a jerk, but she pissed me off. Emma looked at me like I had 3 eyes and ran out of the lunchroom crying. I finished my lunch and went to my next class. I did not see her for the rest of the day and just went to practice and afterward went home. My parents were their usual jerky selves, but told me that there was going to be some guests for dinner. You guessed it. Emma and her parents showed up and introductions were made. I shook her parents' hands and told my parents that I would be in my room until the company left. I was still pissed about lunch. My mother was mad. My dad was mad, and our guests, except for Emma, were confused. I just said to everyone, "If you need to know why I will not stay here with you all, ask Emma about school today, and especially about her encounter with the school's resident scumbags this morning." I left, went to my room, and locked the door. That was our first encounter. 18 years later, I wished it could have been the last. Emma spent almost the entire school year trying to apologize, but I wanted nothing to do with it. Toward the end of April, I saw the same bullies had Emma backed up in a corner again, and as I went by, I saw fear in her eyes. I thought, for just a millisecond, that's what you deserve. But I could not just escape the pleading in her eyes that I saw. I just wasn't raised that way. I set my books down and tapped the nearest jerk on the shoulder and asked if this was a private discussion or could I sort of even the odds. I saw the punch coming, and when I ducked, then another scumsucker hit me in the back of the head and I was down for the count. I woke up in the school nurse's office and was told to lay still until the ambulance arrived. I asked what happened, and the nurse said, "A girl ran to the admin office screaming that you were being stomped on by 4 guys in the hall around the corner from the gym. When the hall monitors and principal arrived, all 4 of the guys were still kicking and stomping on you. They were pulled off of you and taken away when the police arrived." I asked what was wrong with me, and she said, "I'm not sure of all of it, but you have a fracture of your cheekbone, a possible broken rib or ribs, and possible internal injuries. Just lay still until the ambulance gets here." That was the last I remembered until I woke up in the hospital. Emma and her parents showed up the next day at visiting hours, and the first thing Emma said was, "Why did you help me again after I acted as I did before? And then you would not even let me apologize all year." I just stared at her for a second and said, "I do not know where you came from, but here most of us do not like bullies. Regardless of what you said to me, I could not let those scumbags do to you what they have done in the past to others." I only thought for a split second to not help. I definitely didn't know about the other 2 guys, or that I would be knocked out with the first punch. If I had known that, I might have thought longer, but it would not have made a difference. My parents are bullies, and I can't stand bullies. As to your apologies, I neither want nor need them. I just want you to leave me alone. The first time those same 2 jerks were bothering you, you screamed at me in front of the entire cafeteria to leave you alone. I did, but you didn't. Then when I tried to help again, I got the crap kicked out of me. Just leave me alone." Emma started crying, and her parents insisted that she explain about the first incident. As I was a captive audience, I finally heard what was happening. One of the scumbags, Jerry Cooper, told Emma he was going to pick her up for a date that coming Friday, and Emma, not liking his attitude, told him in not so polite words to buzz off. Jerry, along with one of his football posse, cornered her and said, "You're going out with me, be ready at 7 o'clock. That was when I interrupted the party the first time. The second time was more of the same, but they said they were waiting for her boyfriend to show up to show her what would happen if she said no. Emma explained to her parents that she was so scared of the 2 boys and so embarrassed by needing my help that she got mad and took it out on me. Her mother said something about how that must have gotten all over the school. Emma said, "Nope, Sir Knight here never said a word to anyone about it, and when people asked me I just said it was personal." Emma's mother was speechless, but not her father. He verbally laid into her for about 5 minutes before security tossed the whole bunch out. I was visited by several of my classmates. One, Thomas Miller, brought his father with him, and the father informed me he was an attorney and offered to represent me in any lawsuits I wanted to file. He also told me that all 4 of the bullies were from rich families and had started a suit against the school for expelling their loving children. The security tapes in Emma's account put a quick stop to that. He then told me that the families had made a major mistake because if they had just let it go, I would only be able to sue the guys involved because of their adult, over 18, status. I asked what it would cost me to sue all the families, the school, and the school district. He stated that he needed $10 and 20% plus expenses of whatever we got. He also said that he had heard of my home life and recommended that I file for early graduation and emancipation to act on my own behalf. I agreed, and he said he would bring the papers ASAP. He said he would do the emancipation first, so I could sign the legal papers. The emancipation was over quickly as the judge was familiar with my situation, and because I was almost 18 myself, it was just a matter of a few months. Mr. Miller had me sign the papers and said that I was being sued for unprovoked violence against Mr. Cooper. At all? I laughed and Mr. Miller chuckled. He said that he had secured the security tapes of the attack and that somehow all of the other copies at the school had been misplaced. He also had the school disciplinary and police records of the guys. The suit was going nowhere. He also said that this suit was a preemptive strike against me suing them. I told him to sue each family individually for $10,000 a day for every day I am in the hospital, out of school, or under a doctor's care, and a flat $2 million for pain and suffering. Mr. Miller laughed and said, "I will, and I will add that they will also pay me all of my fees, on top of what you get." I then said, "Sue the school officials for the failure of their duty to provide a safe environment, and the school board for the same thing. Oh, let's say $10 million. We will settle all of the suits for all you can squeeze out of all of them." I added, "Sue the guys for $10 million each against future earnings and settle that one for all of them pleading guilty to any charges brought against them, and after completing their punishment, permanently removing them from the state and no return for even funerals or weddings without my approval. We shook hands, signed more papers, and Mr. Miller left. A couple of days later, the school district sent several lawyers in to have me sign something. They were extremely angry when I said that I would not sign anything without my attorney's okay. I then told them to go through him before showing up again, or I would have them barred from my room. I also informed them that they could not go through my parents as I was an emancipated minor, and they could no longer sign for me. Mr. Miller called later that same day and said the school system's attorneys had talked to him and offered all medical expenses, $1 million plus 5% legal fees. I told him to accept medical, $4,500,000 and 30% legal fees, and I will release to them a copy of the security tape. He laughed and said I was one evil, vengeful scumsucker. I giggled. I couldn't laugh. It made my ribs hurt, and said, "Nope, my parents are married. I'm just not sure who to, or who my father is." Later that day they accepted, but required a non-disclosure. I signed the next day. Non-disclosure was not a problem. In fact, I would have insisted on it if I had thought of it. As an added bonus, they presented me with my diploma as I had met all of the graduation requirements. The four families offered combined medical, $5,000 per day in the hospital, and or missed school until my class graduates, plus $700,000 no legal expenses. I told Mr. Miller to counter all medical for my entire life for any and all complications from the injuries split between the four families. Then each family will pay $8,000 per day until I was released from current medical care, $1,250,000 for pain and suffering, and 30% of the total amount of the settlement for legal expenses. For that, they would also get a copy of the missing security tape. I also said non-disclosure was to my advantage, so it would not be a deal-breaker, but make it apply to all parties. Mr. Miller laughed and said, "That ought to work. I still wonder about your birth parents' marital status, but I like your style." He said goodbye and hung up the phone. A couple of days later, Mr. Miller came in with some papers and said that families had accepted the deal. I signed the non-disclosure and had Mr. Miller find me a good CPA to take care of the money. A lot of the money was invested in local income properties. The four thugs signed the agreement with the stipulation that I drop all of the charges and lawsuits I filed. I agreed, but after I signed, I laughed and told them that I had not filed any charges. The school and the local DA did. They were pissed and made several threats. Mr. Miller told them that he had recorded their threats and would file on those threats if the pleas to the charges were not made. He also told them that he knew they or their families had taken the security tapes and records, but we had gotten copies before they did it, and would produce them at their trials if they did not fully comply with the agreements. They all pled guilty and got 1 year in the county jail. I agreed with the punishment, and they left the state, and I never heard from them again. I got out of the hospital about 5 weeks later, and my dad informed me that he was suing the school system, the four guys' parents, and anyone else they could. After getting over the surprise, I just laughed. My dad asked what I was laughing about. I said, "Go ahead and sue, but you're wasting the money." I continued, "I am an emancipated minor, so you can't sue, but I can and did. I have an attorney, and he informed me that the four guys are all over 18, expelled from school, and not their parents' responsibilities. The school has offered and I accepted a settlement, and I have it in a trust fund that I will get an allowance from until I am 25, when I can get it all, as I am emancipated. If you let me stay here and eat here, I will pay you $350 per month. Otherwise, I am moving out." He screamed, "You ungrateful scumsucker. We deserve something. You caused us a lot of pain. Just pack up your shit and get out." I left later that day. I went to a motel and paid with a debit card my CPA gave me. I found an apartment and moved in until my 18th birthday. I then decided to enlist in the Air Force. I served 2.5 years and was mustered out when my facial injuries required more surgery. The military did the surgery, but I had a severe vision problem in that eye. They gave me an 80% disability and a medical discharge. When I got home, I was informed that my parents had been killed in a single-car accident and that I was the sole beneficiary of their estate, as they had not designated any heir, nor had they disowned me. There was a $150,000 insurance policy on my dad and a $75,000 one on my mom. The policies both had a double indemnity clause. I also got my mom's car and the house. About 6 months later, I literally bumped into Emma again. I had gotten surgery on my eye from one of the best eye doctors in the country and was now going to sign up for the local state college. As I was entering the administration building, Emma was coming out. She had one arm full of books and one arm on the door push bar when, without looking, I pulled it open. She spilled out of the door. I caught her, but her books were all over the ground. She started to get all angry but deflated when she looked and recognized me. She shouted, "Davy, I didn't know you were back." I apologized for messing her books up and proceeded to pick them up for her. She wanted to get together to catch up and asked me to meet her at a local lounge/bar that evening. I agreed. When I got there, Emma was not there yet, so I ordered a burger and a 7-Up. I quit drinking after getting a vicious headache brought on by my injuries and waited for her. She arrived about 10 minutes late and never apologized for it. She ordered her drink and said she had already eaten, but for me to go ahead. As I was eating, Emma filled me in on all that I had missed while I was away. It seems that 2 of Mr. Cooper's friends that attacked me were arrested a couple of states over for murder, and no one had heard anything about the other 2. She told me all about her boyfriends, her breakups, and all of the gossip that I could care less about. After she wound down, she asked about me. I told her about my parents, my military experience, my eye problem and fix, and that while I had a job, that I had enrolled in college and was starting after the next semester. We talked for about an hour, and she said she had to go because she had an early class. She told me how sorry she was about my parents and left. I never asked for her phone number and never gave her mine. So I was blown away when about 3 weeks later she called me in the evening. I asked how she had gotten my number, and she just laughed and said you never changed it when you took over the house. She wanted to know if I liked live theater when I said yes. She invited me to a play that weekend. I agreed, but only if she let me buy dinner. We agreed. The play was fun, and I got her phone number. We dated regularly, and for me exclusively, for about 6 months, with no sex. Then she wanted to take a break. I was pissed but chalked it up to the unknown feminine mind. I did not hear from her for several months. When she called me again, I told her I was in a semi-serious friend with benefits relationship and was still p.o.d. about her break. I was polite but firm and asked her not to call again. I said if my relationship ended, I would call her if I wanted to get back together. She hung up on me. My friends with benefits lady fell in love with someone and left the city with him. I enjoyed her company, her conversation, and the sex was great, but there was very little emotional attachment. I dated several ladies and continued through another year of school. I did not call Emma. I saw her several times throughout the school year and around the town on the weekends. She always seemed to be with a different guy. When I returned to the campus the next semester, I heard through the grapevine that one of the professors had been fired for having sex with Emma. I also heard that Emma had transferred to another school. Semester break corresponded with Christmas. I was surprised when Emma called me at my house. It had been quite a while since she had given me the "I need a break" message. I had gotten past the hurt and anger. We talked for a long time, and I finally asked her if she wanted to meet for coffee sometime during school break. She mentioned a small on-campus coffee house at 10 o'clock the next morning. I said okay and goodbye. I was there at 9:50 and got a coffee and a seat by the window. I watched as Emma pulled into the parking lot a couple of minutes later. It was before 10 o'clock, but she sat in her car until 10:10. Then she walked in and saw me. She smiled, ordered her drink, and walked over and sat down. She never apologized for being late and did not seem to notice that I was steamed. I finished my coffee, paid my bill, told Emma that she should call me again when she decided to stop playing games. I told her I noticed when she pulled in the lot and that I had better things to do than wait for someone who has to make an entrance. I left. Emma called me later that afternoon and apologized. She said she had forgotten about how I felt about punctuality. She asked if we could try again. In a fit of total stupidity, I said let's try coffee, same time, same place. She said okay. When I got there, she was sitting where I had been the day before. I got my coffee and sat down next to her. I said hi and asked how she was doing. After the usual personal talk, I asked how she was doing at her new school. Emma got a shocked look and asked how I knew about that. When I told her that the firing of the professor and that she had transferred, she just looked down at her coffee and said, "Not my finest moment," she continued. I was stupid, childish, and selfish. I thought that he would be a help to me in school. After his wife and another professor caught us, I found out that he had a different co-ed almost every school year. I was just the latest bimbo. I didn't say much, just reached out and patted the back of the hand she had on the table. She smiled. I said that if she wanted to, perhaps we could go to a movie or to dinner during the break. She got a big smile and said, "How about this weekend?" We swapped cell phone numbers and agreed to talk later in the week. We went out that weekend, and it was like nothing had changed between us. We continued going out when the school allowed. After I graduated and started a new job in my hometown, I was hired as a dispatch supervisor for a local package delivery company. Emma ended up back in town also, so we started dating seriously again. After 6 months, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. That is when the prenup came into the mix. Emma knew I had some money, but her parents did not. Emma had a small trust fund from a grandfather. Her father insisted on a prenup to protect Emma's money. I talked to Mr. Miller, and he said don't sign anything until he looks at it. I told him about Emma knowing I had some money, but not how much. I also said that Emma's parents did not know anything about my wealth. I wanted the same or better protection than Emma if I were to sign any prenup. Mr. Foster was very fair, and the proposed prenup protected everything that was an individual property or possession. Any assets that we accumulated together would be divided evenly in the event of marriage failure. The wedding was great, as were the first 10+ years of the marriage. In the last 8 months, Emma started closing me out of a lot of her life. She started going out with some of her co-workers and our sex life went at almost zero. That is when she sprung the "we should try swinging" statement. Emma was totally surprised by my response to her statement. I left for work the following Monday. About halfway there, I wondered what had caused the change in Emma. I pulled over and called work and said I needed to take a few days off for a personal emergency. I called Emma's cell phone, thinking that she went to work. I got the phone as not in service message, so I knew she had turned it off. I then called home and a weepy Emma answered. I told her I had taken a few days off and was going to a motel to do some thinking. I also told her that I was extremely hurt and very angry right now and that I did not think that with how things had been going in our marriage that it would survive. I asked her to go somewhere for a few hours so I could come to the house and get some clothes. I told her I was not going to an attorney yet, but I was going to try to figure out if we could get over this. She cried some more and said, "Okay, I will go to visit my mother for a couple of hours." We said our goodbyes, and I went to a local motel and booked a room for a couple of nights. I went home and after taking enough clothes to last for 3 days, I decided to write Emma a letter to give her enough information to understand where I stand. After sitting at the computer, I composed a brief letter to let her know that things, as I saw them, were broke. Dear Emma, you told me Saturday that I was a great husband. I do not believe you really feel that way. Let me tell you why I say that. If I am such a great husband, why have you been going out with your co-workers every week? But every time I ask to take you out to dinner, you're too tired, don't feel good, or don't want to. If I am such a great husband, how come you have not tried to initiate making love for over 8 months? And when I try, you are too tired, don't feel good, or don't want to, or give me a mercy sex. If I am such a great husband, why have you started picking fights over some of the silliest things? Things like me mowing the lawn, not mowing the lawn, taking the garbage out, not taking the garbage out? You even tried to start an argument about me not emptying the dishwasher without even looking in it. I had emptied the clean and loaded it with dirty dishes and all you did was look embarrassed. Yet you did not apologize and just left the room. These are just a few of the things I have seen in the last months. If you don't love me, or I am not enough for you, we can get a divorce. If that is what you want, I will agree with it. I will insist on the enforcement of the prenup, but you can have everything else we have accumulated during our marriage. If you do not want a divorce, you need to make a major attitude adjustment because I was already to ask for at least a separation because of what you have done and how you have acted recently. I will bet that if you think about it, the co-workers that you go out with are either divorced or on their second or third marriages. I would also bet that the swinging idea was put out there by one of that group. I know you probably think that I am overreacting, but I will not willingly share with you while we are married. If I find out you have already had sex with someone, we are done. Do you understand that? Think about all of this. Ben. I put the note and my wedding ring on the coffee maker and left. I did not hear from Emma until the next afternoon. I had all kinds of thoughts going through my head. Was she checking with her friends, her lover, perhaps her parents? I finally decided that I needed honest answers and hired an investigator to check on her for the next 2 weeks. When Emma did call, we talked and I said I would return to talk the next day, but she needed to sleep in the guest bedroom or leave because until I was over my hurt, I did not want to have her touch me. She cried and said, "Okay, I will see you tomorrow night." Well, when I got back to my house, Emma was not in sight, and when I went in the bedroom, all of her clothes were out of the closets and her dresser drawers were empty. Whether they were in the guest bedroom or out of the house entirely, I did not know, and I was not going to go look. Emma came out of the guest room and asked if I was hungry. She acted like she had not even read the note. I did not make any comment about her attitude, but I just said I didn't come here to eat. I want answers. The need for you to leave will depend on those answers. Remember, you can't lie to me for shit. I can always tell when you are not truthful. Are you going to answer the questions? She looked down at the floor and mumbled something. She looked up with tears in her eyes and said, "I will go to my parents for a while." I responded. That response answers all of the questions that I had except for 1 or 2. Who is the man you are cheating with, or is there more than one? I know that you have someone because, in 10 years of marriage, You were never like this until the last few months. Just do not tell your parents that I caused this problem, because I will talk to them and let them know what is going on. I am also going to file for a legal separation and freeze all of our credit cards and bank accounts. If you will answer all of my questions and concerns, we may be able to get through these problems. If you don't want to answer, just tell me and we can end this with a divorce. Emma just sort of slumped her shoulders and without looking at me said, I don't know why you think I have cheated. I don't want a separation or a divorce. I gave her a curt laugh and said, okay, if you don't want a separation or a divorce, you had better go see a psychiatrist, find out where your shitty attitude came from. I will not put up with it. I also do not believe your denial of cheating. So give me the names of the ladies that you are with on your ladies' night out. I can't and won't stand for these accusations. So go ahead and file for your goddamn divorce. But I will rip you a new hole in the settlement. She screamed. I just shook my head and said, okay, I will see an attorney in the morning. I have protected my assets and yours, so all you can go after is what we have accumulated since we got married. I will make it easy. You can have it all. I have enough to get by. So the funds we have built up are yours. I then gave her my final verbal shot. Just remember, I was willing to talk through some of our problems. But just like the last several months, you have shut me out. If you can live with that, have a good life. Emma started to sob, grabbed her purse and left. That wasn't the end, of course. My phone was bombarded all the next week by calls from Emma's parents, her friends, and somehow, she even got some of my friends to call. They all asked me what I did to hurt Emma. When I tried to explain, I was almost always stopped and was told that that was not what Emma said. From her family and friends, I sort of expected that, but I told my friends to think back on all of my actions and decide if they wanted to be my friend still. I let them know that while it was none of their business, they had to decide if they believed Emma or me. I lost a lot of my friends, and when they wanted to reconnect, I had them call Emma. I got the report from the PI and found out that Emma was not staying with her parents, but with her boss in an apartment in town. That made me laugh because my trust fund owned the building. I called the building manager and got copies of all of the security tapes of the hallways and lobby. I also asked for a copy of his lease agreement. I gave all of that information and videos to my attorney. Then I got served with divorce papers and a lawsuit to void the prenup. Now that pissed me off. I called my lawyer and countersued for adultery and named her boss as correspondent. I also had my lawyer serve the boss with an eviction notice to be served at his home when his wife was home. The lease agreement was for single occupancy and guests could not stay more than 3 days without an additional fee. Emma had stayed for more than a week. Things went along for a couple of days after Emma was served. Then she called and said she was ready to talk to me. I asked if she was ready to be completely honest and to let the people who have harassed me that same truth. When she said yes, I agreed to meet her at a local coffee shop. I did say that she was not to bring her boss with her. She gasped but said okay. My lawyer did not want me to go but told me to record the entire meeting. I really did not know what to expect, so I brought copies of the investigator's report and the pictures taken from the videos from the apartment building. I did not bring the videos because they only showed the hallways. When I got there, Emma was late, but this time she apologized. I'm sorry for being late. Something was going on in a street near work, and I had to take a very different route and got slightly lost. I waved it off, then told Emma that I was going to record this meeting, as my lawyer had told me to do. I started the recorder, gave the date, time, and location of the recording being made. I then asked Emma if she understood that I was recording the conversation. First, she just nodded, but I insisted that her verbal answer. With almost clenched teeth, she said, I don't like it, but I understand that you are recording. You're doing this is making me angry, but you are setting the parameters. I then asked if she was going to answer all of my questions and concerns. I then said, this is just a preliminary meeting. I do not guarantee that we will be back together after this meeting, but if I am not satisfied with the way this discussion goes, based on your honesty, candidness, and completeness, we will not get back together. Do you understand? Emma sobbed and said, yes, I understand what you said. What I don't understand is why you are being such an angry a-hole. I just laughed and said, your actions over the last 7+ months are why. Now you said you were ready to answer all of my questions. Are you really ready? Yes, she said. Okay, you said you were ready to answer all of my questions. The first question is, have you had sex with anyone other than myself since we got engaged and married? Before you answer, BJ, contrary to Bill Clinton's claims, is still sex. Yes, she said. Next question is a multi-part one. How many different people have you had sex with during that time? What are all of their names? Have you stopped? There have been 2, but only one since we have been married. I will not give you their names. I have stopped as of 2 days ago when my lover lost the lease on his apartment in town and had to go back to his wife. I decided to rub it in a little. So you have cheated with a cheater, is that right? Yes. I then zinged her with the next question. Would your cheating with the cheater have continued if you had been able to stay in that 4th-floor apartment of your lover's? Yes. And how do you know where his apartment is? I slid a stack of 8-inch by 10-inch pictures captured from the videos. Emma let out a screech and ran out of the meeting. I did not see or hear from her or her lawyer until our first court appearance. She brought her parents, her boss, and a couple of friends. I just looked at the group and smiled. I did not say a thing. The first thing the judge asked was if all interested parties were sure the marriage was irreparably damaged. My lawyer, Mr. Miller, said yes. Emma's lawyer said no. Her lawyer then brought up the motion to vacate the prenup. The judge looked over his glasses at the attorney and said, both parties signed and filed the prenup. If your client wants to vacate it, may I ask why? The lawyer gulped and said, my client's husband has substantial assets that my client was unaware of at the time of signing. The prenup was requested by my client's family to protect her assets. The judge scowled. Let me get this straight. Your client and her family proposed the prenup, and now that your client finds that there is premarital money on her husband's side, she wants to vacate her agreement. Is that a fair statement? The lawyer started to sweat and gulped again. Yes, Your Honor. Motion denied. If the divorce is granted, the prenup will be enforced. With that statement, Emma's boss got up from his seat and left the courtroom. I whispered to my lawyer. Now I know where the attempt to overturn the prenup came from. Emma's lawyer then stood back up and said, my client now requests marriage counseling. The judge looked to our bench. I shook my head and Mr. Miller stated, my client feels that counseling would only prolong the pain of his spouse's betrayal and breaking of their marriage vows. He continued, my client is willing to surrender all of the joint assets accumulated during the marriage, but feels that the evidence of an adulterous affair has caused him to just want out of the marriage and to continue on with his life. The judge popped upright in his chair. He asked, you mentioned an affair. I hope you have evidence of that, or I may revisit my prior ruling. We do, Your Honor, and if necessary, we are prepared to present Mrs. Bowyer's recorded admission. An admission she agreed to have recorded. Emma's lawyer jumped up. My client did not agree to any recording. A recording was made, but my client did not agree to it. Mr. Miller stood and said, Your Honor, we have the tape and the vocal agreement to be recorded will be heard. We are amenable to a delay while opposing counsel has an opportunity to listen to the entire tape and also see all of the video and photographic evidence of his client living with her supervisor when she left the marriage house. Emma's lawyer conferred with Emma then said, My client withdraws all objections to the dissolution of the marriage and does not need to see the evidence. We stipulate the complainant's request is accurate. The judge looked at both desks. If both parties are in agreement, the claimant's request for dissolution is granted. The financial settlement as follows. Claimant will, as the injured party receives 90% of all assets acquired during the marriage. Claimant will be granted unrequested spousal support of $500 per month for a period of 10 years, or until he remarries. These financial settlements are imposed as punishment for the offending party's actions. I suggest that the two parties sit down and agree to a different settlement. These orders will become final in 91 days. Bowyer versus Bowyer case adjourned. Somehow, I was not pleased with the judgment. It just affirmed that my marriage was a failure. The attorneys negotiated the financials, and I got a small lump sum settlement and strict enforcement of the prenup. I donated all of the lump sum to the local woman's shelter. I did not want or need it. Emma's boss was sued for divorce by his wife, and he was in a similar situation as Emma. All of the money was hers. I got what she didn't. He was fired and left town. Emma somehow kept her job. Neither one of us was at the reading of the final decree. I did not see her for over 2 years. I did keep in touch with her parents, and they remained friends. I saw Emma recently, and she seems to have lost her joy. She was kind of frumpy, no makeup, baggy clothes, and stringy hair. I did not talk to her as what she did was still a raw wound. Life is a voyage, and Emma was an unexpected detour. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.